So we've got a few questions. So how I'm going to do this is I'll actually go by order of votes. So there's a tip for next time. But you can only have put in one vote. And then I'll ask each of the panel members their question. And Roger, I checked just before. I've got a question I could ask you, but because I don't have one in here, it gives you direct first dibs on answering any of the other questions if you'd like to engage along the way.
Just something I left out was ACC has looked at the economics of having an FLS and the program, which is funding all those bits, not just an FLS, the whole thing, is costing about $5 million a year. And what they're thinking is that by 2035, fractures are going to be costing them $1.5 billion. And they think by investing $5 million a year and getting all that working, they will take $500 million off that $1.5 billion. So that's why they think it's worth doing.
So, Roger, you've just actually answered my question, which I had, which was what is the key enabler to interoperability? So thank you. Nice work. Okay. So, and I didn't even cheat and send him a text. So, Marie, you've got the top question, which is what is the typical sit-to-stand subscription, e.g. reps, sets, rest?
Yeah, so that's a great question, thank you. We left the exercise prescription in the hands of the treating senior physio, so it was up to them to prescribe exercise dosing. We just wanted them to prescribe sit-to-stand as the core exercise, and then we gave bed and chair-based options so that patients could express a preference if they weren't willing to walk or do sit-to-stand, they could still participate. And I think that was part of the reason why our fidelity was quite high as well, as we gave patients that ability to choose.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, the next question, I believe, it doesn't go out to Stuart any longer. It's gone to the panel and it's raised some votes, so this might into everybody getting a go. So what are the panellists' thoughts re decreasing rates of GA in the setting of 16% patients being delayed for anticoagulants? Is that anybody going to answer that? That just seemed to come up out of nowhere. So we might. Do you want to have a go at that, Jackie, or do you want me to be?
The question was to reduce the delays for anticoagulation.
Yes, the rates of GA. Yeah, so panelists thoughts read decreasing rates of GA in the setting of 16% patients being delayed for anticoagulants. So it's specific to the slides.
There's two parts to that question. In terms of delays due to anticoagulation, that's going to continue. I think the percentage will change over time, and I think that there are more and more surgeons now willing to operate with anticoagulants on board, particularly if they're doing internal fixation rather than total or hemi-arthroplasty. So certainly where I work, we have very few delays related to anticoagulation for internal fixation, but people still feel more comfortable delaying until the day after 48 hours for arthroplasty. The GA bit's a much harder question. The anaesthetists feel very uneasy about spinals without knowing how much anticoagulant is still on board. There's a workshop at the FFM which is specifically going to try and put together an international protocol for management of anticoagulation for hip fractures. So Hannah Seymour is going to be running that workshop. So we may actually get some international guidelines for that.
Excellent, thanks Jackie. This one's for Stuart. So Stuart, can there be multiple ANZ HFR accounts per organisation, or is it the one account per organisation with a shared password?
No, everybody should have their own password. So we track, at the moment we track activity by username. So I'm happy to set up 100 users if you're a hospital, but don't share passwords. Same with any other data.
Thanks, Stuart. That's a really helpful question too, very operational and useful. So, Kristen, I believe the next one's for you, is how does the clinical nurse specialist split her 0.2, 1 day a week or a few hours a day? Again, operational, but very important.
So Megan works 1 day a week in the role as the hip fracture nurse, and fortunately she also works on the ward in an ANUM role as well. So she's present on our ward every day of the week, and that's fantastic.
Okay, then we'll go to Rachel. So Rachel, Eat, Walk, Engage. How has infection control standards impacted activities and ability to either share resources or group patients with meals? Oh, she's gone. All right, so she missed that question. Okay, so I'll just make sure. So, and Roger's already used his question up, so I can now go to the other pressing outstanding questions in the next minute. So we'll go with... There was another one for Stuart there. Yeah, so Stuart, this will be the last question. Has there been thought of making up an app for either Android or iOS to provide patient bedside data and improve completeness of data collection? I'm happy to open that to the entire floor as well, and you can talk about what might be the benefits or disadvantages of that, but you get first grab, Stu.
Yeah, we've spoken about putting together an app. The moment the registry is set up for clinical use, and it is available on iPads, your mobile phone. We had someone just log in, just to be forward to log in on their mobile phone. I wouldn't recommend you enter date on the mobile phone. It's a little small, probably be a bit frustrating, just giving you a hint, but iPads are fine. In terms of then taking that data and improving patient care or interacting with the patient, that's really more what we're talking about now with PREMS. I can't tell you how ridiculously excited I am about that. I know I sound overly enthusiastic, but we started talking about this in 2009 in the UK, and to see it finally coming together, I'm like just ridiculously excited that we're actually listening to the patients and actually going to start recording how they see what we do. So if that turns into an app that we can inform and do better stuff with it, oh, absolutely. But does it need to be an app, or is just a web page easier? I'm not entirely sure an app suits the purpose.
So on that note, I'm going to shut down this panel because that is a great place to finish. We started today looking at patient-reported experiences and a presentation by Stephen. So for this session, I'd just like everyone to thank the panel very much for their presentations. Thank you again.